Assalamu alaikum friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you all are fine. Friends, in this video we will discuss most important questions about Preface to Shakespeare. It was written by Samuel Johnson and he was always fascinated by Shakespeare writing from his childhood. Friends, it is a preface contributed by Samuel Johnson to the play titled The Plays of William Shakespeare that was written in 1765. It is considered as greatest piece of neoclassical literary criticism. Before starting the video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon for latest video. Let's start the topic. First question is, what is a preface? Friends, a preface is an author's introductory remarks at the beginning of any book. It can be the beginning or introductory portion that comes before the main text of any document or any book. Next question is, who is Shakespeare? Friends, as you all know, Shakespeare is the greatest poet dramatist of English literature, and he was one of most famous writers of all time in English playwright, poet and actor. He is often called as England's national poet. Next question is, what does antiquity serve in criticism? Friends, antiquity is always considered as a quality to judge a writer, or it can be artifact that survive from the past. Next question is, how can we judge an author of the past? Friends, we can judge an author of the past by the continuation of regard and esteem through the ages. Next question is, what type of characters does Shakespeare present in his dramas? Friends, Shakespeare presents characters who don't belong to any particular country, place, or custom, but they are the real progeny of common humanity. Shakespeare plays are filled with an impressive variety of characters, from kings and queens to maids and messengers to ghosts and fairies. Next question is, what is the speciality of dialogues in Shakespearean plays? Friends, the dialogues in Shakespearean plays are based on the actual conversation of people. Next question is, how love is treated in Shakespeare's plays? Friends, love is treated by Shakespeare as one of many passions of human beings, but not as the sole passion which brings victory or failure. And Shakespeare qualified the Platonic view that true love transcends the physical. Next question is, what is the speciality of Shakespearean heroes? Friends, the heroes in Shakespeare are neither giants nor the pygmies. They are the real men who act or speak like human beings adorned with genuine human qualities. Next question is, who was John Dennis? Friends, John Dennis was a critic who flourished in the early 18th century and attacked Shakespeare in his book, An Essay on the Genius and Writings of Shakespeare. Next question is, who was Thomas Rhymer? Friends, Thomas Rhymer was a critic of early 18th century who bitterly criticized Shakespearean dramas in his book, A Short View of Tragedy. Next question is, how do you refute the fault that Shakespeare sacrifices virtue to convenience? Friends, this fault cannot be leveled against Shakespeare because he doesn't write a moral precept but a drama of life. This fault is perhaps ascribed to him out of Johnson's neoclassical attitude. Next question is it true that Shakespeare was very fond of quibbles? Friends, the answer is yes. Shakespeare was very much fond of quibbles, and whenever he would get a chance to use a quibble, he would not let it go unused. Next question is, who is Voltaire? Friends, Voltaire is a great philosopher, critic, and political leader of France who condemned Shakespeare for lack of taste and ignorance of the classical rules of drama. Next question is, what is philology? Friends, it is the science of language which deals with the origin, development, and changes of language. It is the branch of knowledge that deals with the structure, historical development, and relationships of a language. Next question is, what was Cato? Friends, Cato was a Roman statesman, an orator, and great prose writer on history, medicine, law, and agriculture. Next question is, who is Caliban? Friends, Caliban, half man and half fish creature in Shakespeare's play The Tempest. It plays an important role as a comic character. Next question is, what is Comedy of Errors? Friends, it is a very interesting and successful comedy written by Shakespeare in his early period for laughter and enjoyment. Next question is, what is Romeo and Juliet? Friends, Romeo and Juliet is a highly romantic tragedy that was written by Shakespeare. It followed the English translation of an Italian drama. Next question is, who was Roy? Friends, Nicholas Roy was a playwright and critic who was the poet laureate in 1715. He edited Shakespearean plays and dividing them into different acts and scenes. Next question is, who was Dr. Warburton? Friends, Dr. Warburton was the Bishop of Gloucester and the first editor of Shakespeare's works. Next question is, who was Alexander Pope? Friends, Alexander Pope was the greatest poet of 18th century English literature, and he was a great critic too. He edited Shakespeare's works in 1725. Next question is, how did Pope edit Shakespeare's works? Friends, Alexander Pope relied on those authors who had edited Shakespeare's works instead of making his own judgment. Next question is, who was Theobald? Friends, Theobald was a poet, writer of dramas, and critic of the 18th century. Next question is, who were Hemming and Condell? Friends, John Hemming and Henry Condell were the fellow actors of Shakespeare's dramas. They jointly edited the first folio of Shakespeare's plays in 1633. Next question is, what is Pope's opinion about the duty of an editor? Friends, Pope calls the duty of an editor dull what he felt in editing Shakespeare's works. Next question is, who was Sir Thomas Hammer? Friends, Sir Thomas Hammer was one of Shakespeare's works in the 18th century. Next question is, who was Mr. Upton? Mr. Upton was a critic of Shakespeare who wrote critical observations on Shakespeare in 1746. Next question is, who was Dr. Gray? Friends, Dr. Gray was an 18th century critic of Shakespeare who wrote historical and explanatory notes on Shakespeare in 2 volumes in 1754. Next question is, what is Canons of Criticism? Friends, it is a book on criticism by Thomas Edward, in which the writer attacked Warburton's edition of Shakespeare. Next question is, what is collation? Friends, conjecture is a guess to put forward an opinion formed without facts as proof. Next question is, what is conjecture? Friends, conjecture is a guess to put forward an opinion formed without fact as proof. Next question is, what is amendation? Friends, amendation means taking out errors from book or passage in any book. Next question is, why did Johnson follow the division of play into 5 acts? Friends, Johnson followed the customary distribution of the plays into 5 acts, although he believed that this division is arbitrary. Next question is, who was Justice Scaliger? Friends, Joseph Justus Scaliger was the greatest scholar of Renaissance and is described to be the founder of historical criticism. Next question is, what is the opinion of Scaliger about conjectures? Friends, Scaliger said that their conjectures made them look silly and they were ashamed of them after they had come upon better manuscripts. Next question is, how does John Dryden appreciate Shakespeare? According to John Dryden, Shakespeare was the poet of nature who had the largest and most comprehensive soul of all modern and perhaps the ancient poets. Next question is, how did Shakespeare gather experience about life? Friends, whenever Shakespeare required experience about life, he looked inward and found her there. Next question is, what are, according to Dryden, are the faults of Shakespeare? Friends, Dryden finds Shakespeare many times flat and insipid, and his comic wits degenerating into clenches and his serious swelling into bombast. Next question is, to which school of criticism does Dr. Johnson belong? Friends, Dr. Johnson belongs to neoclassical school of criticism with some exceptions. Next question is, why is Dr. Johnson called an independent critic? Friends, Dr. Johnson doesn't abide by the principle of any school of criticism. Next question is, why is Dr. Johnson called a critic of rectified classism? Friends, Dr. Johnson is a neoclassical critic. He differs from it in many important principles, so he is rightly called a rectified classism. Next question is, why is Dr. Johnson called a balanced critic? Friends, this was because he reasonably and justly judges the qualities and defects of Shakespeare without being influenced by any sort of emotion. He is rightly called a balanced critic of Shakespeare. Next question is, what kind of criticism has Johnson applied to his preface to Shakespeare? Because he reasonably and justly judges the qualities and defects of Shakespeare without being influenced by any sort of emotion, he is rightly called as balanced critic of Shakespeare. Next question is, what is the preface to Shakespeare? Friends, preface to Shakespeare means a book in which Johnson has given explanatory remarks about Shakespeare as a dramatist. Next question is, who, according to Wordsworth, is a poet, or how does Wordsworth define a poet? Friends, a poet is a man speaking to men endowed with more lively sensibility, more enthusiasm and tenderness, and possessing a more comprehensible soul. Next question is, why does Johnson call Shakespeare poet of nature? Friends, Shakespeare is called poet of nature because of his presentation of human life that flows through every man of all the ages of human civilization. Next question is, what are the constituent elements of a tragedy? Friends, three constituent elements in tragedy are plot, character, and thought. They are concerned with the objects of imitation. Next question is, what do you mean by the unity of action? Friends, in a drama, the story should be one integrated whole. It is called the unity of action. Next question is, what is Dr. Johnson's opinion about Shakespeare dramas? Friends, according to Dr. Johnson, Shakespeare has neither true tragedy nor true comedy but a special kind of drama that is known as tragicomedy. Next question is, what is the first fault of Shakespeare that Dr. Johnson mentioned in his The Preface to Shakespeare? Friends, Shakespeare, according to Dr. Johnson, sacrifices virtue to convenience and is much more careful to please than to instruct. Next question is, what is Dr. Johnson's allegation about the plots of Shakespeare's dramas? Friends, Dr. Johnson alleges that Shakespeare's plots are loosely connected. It is partly true, but he is careful about the main parts of the story. Next question is, why did Dr. Johnson write the preface to Shakespeare? Friends, to introduce Shakespeare's dramas edited by him in 1765 to the reader, Johnson wrote this preface. Next question is, what type of poet, according to Dr. Johnson, is Shakespeare above all? Friends, according to Dr. Johnson, Shakespeare is above all a poet of nature. Next question is, what type of critic is Dr. Johnson? Friends, Dr. Johnson is a neoclassical critic, and at the same time he modifies some of the most important principles of neoclassical, which in the long run results in the introduction of romantic criticism. Friends, in this video we have discussed about the most important questions related to the preface to Shakespeare. Stay tuned for the next video. Stay blessed. Keep watching. Allah Hafiz.